The Atlanta Braves sweep the Philadelphia Phillies in Citizens Bank Park for the first time in over a decade. Let's talk about it. Yes, welcome on in to Braves Today, your daily source for news, notes, and updates on your Atlanta Braves. I'm your host, Lindsay Crosby. You can follow me on social media at Crosby Baseball, and you can find all of my written work, bravestoday.com. That's the Braves Today Substack, as this is both a podcast and a newsletter. We're proudly part of the Believe Podcast Network and presented to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app or go to FanDuel.com to get started. I want to talk about a new concept, something the Discord came up with, called Soul Survivor Day. We'll explain what that is later. It's a National League East thing. It's going to be a pretty exciting stat for Braves fans to hear. I want to preview tonight's series opener against the Washington Nationals and who the Nationals are as a team in general, because I do think there is an opportunity here for the Braves to continue increasing their lead in the East. But before we do that, their lead in the East is currently 5 games because they swept the Philadelphia Phillies over the weekend. And it's not just the fact that the Braves swept them. It's the way that Atlanta did it. This was as dominant of a series as you could have hoped for. From the perspective of Atlanta scored 16 runs. They allowed 3 to Philadelphia. That's it. And let's be clear real quick. This isn't all entirely on Atlanta. Philly has lost 4 series at home this year. Last season, the entire season, that only happened 3 times. So some of this is on Philadelphia. They are going through it right now. They have seen just a lot of games 2 and 3. Both of them, they scored early. Atlanta came back, and Philly could just never add more runs. Now, Atlanta, these weren't high-scoring games for at least 2 of them. Atlanta won 9-0 on Friday night, yes, but they won 3-1 on Saturday and 4-2 on Sunday. They had to use the high leverage arms and all that stuff, and so tonight's going to be in Washington versus the Nationals, and we'll get to that later. You're definitely going to need a decent start and some length here, because your leverage, or you need a bunch of runs, because your leverage arms have worked. Most of them have worked 2 straight days. Raisel Iglesias is the difference here, because he had a shoulder issue on Saturday that kept him from pitching. I'm not necessarily going to go over every single game and what happened in each one, but when you look at some of the notable performances from this weekend, Michael Harris goes 3 for 4 on Friday. He hits a home run. He scores twice. He gets the day off on Saturday, but checks in late for a pinch hit situation. And when he checks in, I believe this was the 6th inning maybe he was batting. Or no, he checked in the bottom of the 7th for defense and then got an at-bat in the 8th. And he walks. He draws a walk. You know, Michael Harris is seeing the ball good if he's walking, right? And then on Sunday in the finale, Harris picks up 3 more hits, including another home run and another walk. So on the weekend, he goes 6 for 7. He hits 2 homers. He scores 4 times. He walks twice. He's feeling good if that's what he's doing. Austin Riley goes 2 for 5 on Friday. Both of those hits are home runs. He gets a 3-run homer in the 2nd off of Taijuan Walker. He gets a solo shot in the 9th. When you get to Saturday, 2 more hits for Riley and an RBI. They're both singles, but doesn't matter. 2 out RBI there for Riley. And then on Sunday, Riley goes 1 for 4. Does drive in a run. Just another good game for Riley. Braves pitching, for the most part, does their job as well. Martín Pérez, 6 scoreless innings on Friday night. 4 hits, 2 walks, 4 strikeouts. Definitely feels like he's not going to get DFA'd now, which is, I don't want to skip that real quick. He talked about this after Friday night's game to the media. And I don't want people to interpret this as like him complaining or anything, because the way that this usually works, I'm willing to guarantee you that they asked him about this. Because the whole thing was, he made that start last week. He got DFA'd. He elected free agency. He re-signed with Atlanta, and they called him back up for the start. Had he declined to go to had he declined the outright, had he accepted the outright and gone to Gwinnett, he would have had to stay down for 15 days. So that's part of the reason why he declined it. But he genuinely looked at maybe leaving. He looked and tried to see if there was another option out there. The quote here, as given to Chad Bishop of the AJC, about how he got DFA'd and everything. Quote, "It was tough for me because I was not happy with the decision, but I'm a professional and talked to my agent, and the best option was Atlanta. I didn't even know if I was going to start tonight. They told me Wednesday. It clicked in my mind. I went, okay, time to go again." The Braves made a calculated risk of, hey, he's making $3.5 million. If we put him on waivers, if somebody claims him, they're on the hook for everything that he did. And at the time, he was coming off of, one or two starts. You could wonder, was it a bit of a small sample size and an overperformance? I don't think that would work this time. I think there's enough teams who need pitching right now who, if you tried to put Martín Pérez on waivers again, somebody would claim him and he would be gone. And you're at the point, Spencer Strider makes his second rehab start of the year tomorrow in Gwinnett. Sean Murphy will be catching him there. And so you would need Martín Pérez for one or two more times, probably two more times to the rotation. He's been announced for this Washington National Series. We'll get to that in a minute. I genuinely think that they just keep him here. They just keep him as the fifth starter. They're not going to try to do the shenanigans again. Because again, I really think if you try to pass him through waivers, he'll get claimed at this point. But again, good start on Friday from him. Jose Suarez does the piggyback thing, eats the entire rest of the game. 3 innings, 2 hits, no runs, 1 walk, 1 strikeout. He gets the save. He's the third different Braves reliever to pick up a 3-inning save this year. Just amazing how many of those the Braves had at that point through 20 games. Saturday is Chris Sale Day. You love a good Chris Sale Day. 7 innings, 5 hits, 1 run, 1 walk, 7 strikeouts. Dylan Lee takes the 8th. Robert Suarez takes the 9th. As I mentioned earlier, Raisel Iglesias was unavailable on Saturday because he slept wrong and his shoulder was sore and achy. And I have never related more to a professional athlete than I did in that exact moment, because I swear, like once a week, I sleep weird and my shoulder is sore when I wake up. So they're just like us, right? They're just like us, except for all the different ways that they're not. And then, so Robert Suarez gets the save. That's his first save of the year. It's kind of nice to know that, hey, if your closer's unavailable, you can just take the guy who led baseball in saves last year and throw him out in the 9th instead. And then Sunday, you get a just short of 5 and dive from Grant Holmes, 4 2/3. And I'm going to get to that decision in a minute because I want to talk about that behind there. Aaron Bummer gets the ground ball eventually to end that inning, keeping Philly off the board. And then they go Tyler Kinley, Dylan Lee, Robert Suarez, Raisel Iglesias. And Iggy's not exactly the same. The velo's down like a mile an hour or so. Probably still coming back from the shoulder thing. But Braves close it out. Braves get the win and the sweep. They were very aggressive, and by they I mean Walt Weiss, was very aggressive with Grant Holmes on Sunday night. So what happens here? Holmes's game starts off pretty poorly. Trey Turner gets a single to lead off. Kyle Schwarber homers to stake Philly to a 2-0 lead. And then he walks Bryce Harper. From that point, Grant Holmes was very good. He retires 14 of the next 16 batters, 2 singles, no additional walks. And that's been the issue for Grant Holmes, is when he's walking the yard and there's a ton of dudes that are getting free passes, that's when the occasional home runs and things like that hurt him. He has a walk rate of over 11% going into last night's game. And it was much lower when he was a reliever, to the point where, like, okay, I've started to wonder when everybody's healthy, right? Like, Strider's going to take Martín Pérez's spot. I think we all kind of know that. But when everybody else is healthy, like when you bring back a Schwellenbach or a Waldrop later, do you send Grant Holmes to the pen? I think that he goes back to that utility role, right? But he was doing well. And in the fifth inning, Justin Crawford singles to get on. That's the second single he allowed after that first couple batters. Trey Turner grounds out. Crawford's out at second. Turner's now on first. And Schwarber's due back up, who homered in the first inning. So Walt Weiss pulls Grant Holmes. I think he's at like 80 pitches or something. Weiss pulls Grant Holmes, goes to Aaron Bummer. Bummer gives up a double to Schwarber, but Turner is held at third. And then Bummer gets the ground ball on of Bryce Harper. Harper, actually a really good piece of hitting from Harper. He has 2 strikes, and Bummer leaves a sweeper down and away, and Harper just like shoots it to the left side, and Riley gets the scoop, makes a great throw to first, gets the out. But it's just another example of Walt Weiss being uber aggressive to try to lock down a win. You could absolutely have just stuck with Grant Holmes. You didn't have to go to Aaron Bummer, but he said, hey, I want the ground ball lefty to face the lefty Schwarber because we're going to get out of this. We're going to end a potential rally here. We're not going to tie anybody. We're not going to let them tie this up. We're just going to go. They do it. And then from there on, it's the high leverage plan. Kenley, Lee, Suarez, Iglesias. It went well. And so because of the winning weekend, and again, you had a couple of these games where everybody else lost. We'll get to that in the third segment. The Braves have a 5-game lead in the National League East on April 20th. I'm by no means saying this is over. Let's be very clear. This is not enough time or a big enough lead to like sit back and relax. But knowing that the Braves are 15-7, and this is technically an underperformance on the run differential, they're at plus 57 run differential, which is the best in baseball. And the expected win-loss based on their runs scored and runs allowed is 17-5. So they're actually 2 games underperforming based on the run differential. And we talked about this a week or 2 ago. That's how MLB front offices evaluate their team, not necessarily wins and losses, but run differential. And we saw this issue with Atlanta last year. Atlanta had, and 2 years ago too, 1-run losses, things like that. And so Atlanta had underperformed their run differential. They're technically underperforming their run differential now, but they're still 5 games up in the division. The next, no other division in baseball, the leader has more than half a game up on the team behind them. None. The AL West, the Rangers, and the A's are tied, and they're both at 500. And the Angels are half a game back at 11-12. Seattle and Houston are going through it. The Central, the Guardians lead at 13-10. The Tigers are half a game behind them. The AL East, the Yankees are 13-9. The Rays are half a game behind them. The Dodgers are 15-6. It's even a better winning percentage in Atlanta. But the Padres are 15-7 and half a game back, right? The NL Central, every team in the NL Central is over 500. It's not going to last, right? But the Reds are 14-8. They lead the division. The Cardinals are 13-8. They're one of those big overperforming teams early in the year. The Pirates are 13-9, so they're 1 game back of the Reds. The Cubs and the Brewers are 12-9, a game and a half back. Like, the Pirates are fun this year. I'm enjoying watching the Pirates. The Braves are 5 games up. They have a chance to extend that lead. We'll talk about that next, right here on Braves Today. But first, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Grand Slam Getaways. If you've dreamt on going on the ultimate baseball road trip, this one's for you. Grand Slam Getaways offers bucket list baseball bus trips designed for fans who love the game and want to travel in style. There's 2 trips remaining this year. They all depart from Atlanta and include field level tickets, 3-star hotels, daily breakfast, a full slate of ballparks and other activities. Each trip includes at least 2 Braves road games, plus appearances by former MLB players, giveaways, fun side trips, and other games and other notable ballparks on the route. If you're retired, it's a great way to spend, a week or so. If you're just a baseball nut and this is your summer vacation, or parent-child summer adventure. If you're trying to find a way to bond this summer and your kid loves baseball as much as you do, go check out Grand Slam Getaways. It's grandslam-getaways.com for more information. They have a June trip to the Midwest. That one's making a stop at the Louisville Slugger Museum. And they have a July trip to the Northeast. That one's making a stop at the Bull Durham filming locations. So reserve your spot now with a small deposit, grandslam-getaways.com to make this summer a grand slam. Again, check it out, grandslam-getaways.com to let the baseball adventure begin. The Braves are in Washington for 3 games starting tonight versus the Nationals. And this is a really interesting Washington Nationals team. And I say that because they are really good in some areas and they are really bad in some areas. I mentioned the Braves have the best run differential in baseball at plus 57. Part of that is fueled by Atlanta, if I have this right, I believe, leading baseball in runs scored with 122. The team right behind them at 121, the Dodgers are there, the Astros are there, the Nationals are there. The Nationals have scored 121 runs. So the offense is particularly good. They have 24 home runs. They're 5 behind Atlanta. They have 41 doubles. They're 1 behind Atlanta. As a team, they're hitting almost 260. But here's the thing. As good as Washington's offense has been, their pitching has been almost, if not worse. The Nationals have a 5.65 ERA, which is 29th in baseball. They're ahead of only the Houston Astros, who have a 6.11 ERA. The Nationals have allowed 134 runs, which is 29th. And not only is it 29th, it's 21 runs behind the 28th place team. Like, it's 29th, it's easily 29th. And this isn't necessarily confined to just, like, the starters are bad. Yeah, the starters have an ERA of 6.01, right? 59 earned runs and 88 in the third innings. They've struck out less than a guy an inning, which happens more times than you'd realize with starters, right? They have 84 strikeouts and 88 in the third innings. They've allowed 17 home runs. But the bullpen has been worse. Like, the ERA is not worse. 5.37 ERA. But the bullpen's thrown 110 and 2/3 innings, and they only have 88 strikeouts. And it kind of feels like your bullpen, because those guys are typically doing shorter outings, they should be better at not allowing home runs. I'm sorry, better at getting strikeouts, and they're worse at it. So, a little bit frustrating there for the Nationals. Pitching's just not very good. And the probables in this series really favor the Braves. Game 1 today, 6:45 Eastern. It's a pretty early start time for the Braves. Bryce Elder versus Jake Irvin. Braves Today sponsor FanDuel has Atlanta favored by 1.5 in that game. Elder 2-1, 0.77 ERA. Irvin is 1-2 with a 6.16 ERA. Tuesday, Ronaldo Lopez versus lefty Foster Griffin, who, I have to be completely honest, I consider myself a big baseball guy. It took me a minute to remember Foster Griffin. 2014 first rounder by the Royals. In his career, he's only made 4 starts in the majors, and all of them are this year. So, and he was not bad at times when he was up with Kansas City and Toronto as a reliever. But this year, as a starter, it's been a mixed bag. I'll put it that way. ERA is 3.05, which is good. You like that. He's got 19 strikeouts in 20 and 2/3 innings. He's walked 7. He's allowed 3 homers. And opponents are hitting close to 250 off of him. So not bad. Could be better. Wednesday, Martín Pérez versus Zach Littell. And then Thursday, Chris Sale versus Cade Cavalli. So the Braves do a little bit of movement here, and I kind of like what they did. They flip-flopped Elder and Lopez. So Bryce Elder is now on regular rest. Lopez gets 2 additional days of rest. And I've talked about this before, using an anecdote from one day when I was in the press box and I was chatting with Joe Simpson, Braves legend, now part of the radio broadcast. We were talking about Bryce Elder trying to be more consistent. And something that Joe asked for, using a little bit of old baseball wisdom, was stop giving Bryce Elder extra days of rest. As a sinker baller, Joe's thought was, and conventional baseball wisdom from back in the day, is that sinker ballers do better without extra rest when they're a little bit fatigued because you want the ball to stay down. And a lot of those guys, when they have extra rest and there's a little bit more liveliness in their arm, the ball's drifting up into the zone. So by making this change, Elder is on his regular schedule, no additional rest to start tonight, and Lopez gets 2 extra days of rest, which feels like the thing to do. Remember, we're trying to buy extra rest for the postseason guys, for your Lopez, for your Sale. I guess as of right now for Holmes, we'll see what happens. We're trying to buy them extra rest because with most of them, you have workload concerns, right? You know, Holmes still hasn't made it through a full season as a starter. Lopez still hasn't made it through a full season as a starter. So can you get these guys through the regular season and them be fresh enough to pitch for you in October? This is kind of how they do that. And when you look individually at this Washington team, I feel like there's some guys to kind of be mindful of, some guys to know about, and then some areas where you can probably, I'm not going to say relax a little bit, but where this lineup is lacking. Again, this has been a very good offensive team. James Wood is the number one kind of notable threat here from a power perspective. He leads the team in homers with 7. He does have some strikeout issues, 35 strikeouts in 22 games, but he's also drawn 17 walks. So he's only hitting 247, but he has an on-base of 380 and an OPS of 931. It's very reminiscent of a Kyle Schwarber type profile. And I'm not saying he's Kyle Schwarber, but a Kyle Schwarber type profile of lefty slugger, lower batting average, really good on base, and always a threat to destroy a baseball. Will draw plenty of walks, do all that stuff. He's your big threat here, right? CJ Abrams is, from an offensive perspective, playing really well right now. He's hitting 320 with a 1.029 OPS. He's got 6 home runs and only 12 strikeouts in 21 games, which is a big deal, I think, for him. 10 walks to 12 strikeouts. He's batting 320. Defensively, he's still a mess at shortstop. And you'll remember we talked about this last year. He is an Atlanta native. A significant number of his errors in his career. And the Braves comms team had this stat last year. I'm sure they'll have an updated version before today's game. Like 30-something% of all of his career errors are versus the Braves. Like it's got to be a mental thing. Because he's from the Atlanta area. He grew up watching the Braves. You know, and I guess he gets a little yipped up when he has to play against Atlanta. So, again, very, very good offensively. He's doing everything he has to do. Defensively, yeah. After that, nobody else has more than 2 homers. Only one guy has more than 9 RBI. It's like they're being powered by Wood and Abrams. And they're getting good performances. Joey Wiemer, for instance, who is on either his 3rd or 4th MLB team as an outfielder. He's hitting 341 with a 988 OPS. He only has 5 extra base hits. He's got 2 homers, 2 doubles, and a triple. Jacob Young, fantastic defensive center fielder. You're going to see a ton of really good defense in this series between Michael Harris and Jacob Young. Very good center field defense this next couple of games. He's got 8 RBI. He's got 2 homers. He scored 8 times. But like, it's just a lot of contributors and 2 real studs in Woods and CJ Abrams. Like Brady House, they're waiting for him to break out at third base. Big, powerful slugger type. He's got 2 homers and 4 doubles in 21 games. He's slugging 358. Luis Garcia, their first baseman, is slugging 338. Dalen Lyle, their left fielder, which is obviously a very power-driven profile in left field, like you need your power in left field, is slugging 380. Their catcher, Keibert Ruiz, is slugging 366. Like, it's just, yes, some guys have pop individually, but outside of Wood and Abrams, it is a team that you feel like you can contain the threat by just kind of those 2 guys. And then I mentioned the bullpen not being good. Their bullpen is Clayton Beeter, who they got via trade from the Yankees last year, is one of their 2 closers. Gus Varland, who they grabbed off waivers in January, is the other. I've said this a bunch. I don't know how much I've said it here recently. If you get a reliever from a contender in season, you probably shouldn't be relying on that guy for high leverage. The Yankees were contending last year, and they were willing to trade away Clayton Beeter. How many MLB teams do you see need relievers at the deadline? So the Yankees were willing to get rid of a guy who is now your closer. Odd decision there. Beeter is 2 for 4 on his save situations. He has more walks than strikeouts. 386 ERA. Gus Varland, the other closer, is 2 for 3 on his save situations. He's much better as far as 9 strikeouts to 3 walks and 7 2/3, but he's still allowed 3 runs in his 7 2/3 innings, right? And then, like, outside of there, it's just a lot of guys who have really kind of struggled. I mean, you're not afraid of, there's a ton of lefties here, which is wild. Ciano Perez is kind of working as a setup man. They signed him as a free agent from Baltimore in February. PJ Poulin feels like every other day. I think he has 4 appearances in the last 6 days. Brad Lord is working as a long man a little bit. He's like the only other righty in the pen besides Beeter and Varland. Mitchell Parker, lefty. Richard Lovelady, Dickie Lovelady, lefty. Andrew Alvarez, they called him up on, I think, 4 Sundays game. He threw 62 pitches. Odds are by the time this show goes live, he'll already have been sent back down. He'll already have been optioned back down to AAA. So I'm trying to remember where their AAA is. I think it's Rochester? The Red Wings, maybe? Anyway. So, like, it's a bullpen that you can get to, right? Like, this bullpen is not necessarily great at holding a lead. Starting rotation isn't great at holding a lead. The offense is good at getting them leads. It's just outside of James Wood and CJ Abrams, not usually coming from the long ball. So we'll see how Atlanta can do. Again, FanDuel has the Braves favored tonight. Reminder, if you're listening to this on audio, I do the scouting report before every game once lineups are out. As of right now, it's only really been on YouTube because there's visuals and graphics involved. But if you guys want me to start putting this on the audio feed as well, I can definitely do that too. Just, I'd say go to YouTube, subscribe to the YouTube, hit the notification bell so you get the ping when we go live with that. It's about 10 minutes. I try to do it before every game, and it's going through the bullpen status, the pitching matchup, how that guy likes to attack hitters, all of that stuff. Try to do it every single day. There's an accompanying newsletter as well over at bravestoday.com that is free to read that comes out with the same information at the same time. So In just a minute, let's talk about Soul Survivor Day. This was something suggested by premium subscriber John, and I did some work on this, and it's really interesting. We'll talk about that next, right here on Braves Today. We saw an odd situation in the National League East the other day, where Atlanta won, and everybody else in the division lost. So on Thursday, off day, right? Didn't count. I'm sorry. On Wednesday, let me fix that. Sorry. On Wednesday, Braves beat the Marlins 6-3. Okay. The Phillies lost 11-2 to the Cubs. The Mets lost 8-2 to the Dodgers. The Nationals lost 2-0 to the Phillies. And then on Friday, the Braves beat the Phillies. The Mets lost 12-4 to the Cubs. The Mets just keep losing. Shout out to the Cubs here for helping us out with all of these. The Nationals lost 10-5 to the Giants. The Marlins lost 7-5 to the Brewers. And then on Saturday, it all happened again. Braves beat the Phillies again. Mets lost to the Cubs again. Nationals lost to the Giants again. Marlins lost to the Brewers again. So 3 times in a 4-day span did the Braves win, and every other team in the National League East lost. And so John asked, I think it was back on, maybe it was Friday night, he pointed out that that's the second time this season that it happened. And I was curious how often this happens. I wrote a Python script. I'm not going to get into details on this. I wrote a Python script to go out to MLB's game log information and pull the game-by-game results for everybody in the National League East from 2021 through 2026. I dumped it into a spreadsheet, and it ran some filters and stuff to try to find all this info for me, so I wasn't manually doing all of this. And so we know how often that this happens. We're calling them Soul Survivor Days. This is something, the Discord voted on this. What should we call this? We went with Soul Survivor Days. I wrote in the company newsletter this morning over at Braves Today, talking about this concept, right? One team wins, everybody else in the division loses. And what it means, right? Does this help you win the division? What does this mean? And individually, I don't think there's a lot you can learn from any one given Soul Survivor Day, other than it's likely there's a divisional matchup being played that day. All 3 of them we've had so far this year, somebody in the division beat somebody else in the division. So you only have to have 4 games fall the right way to have a Soul Survivor Day. But if you go back the last 5+ seasons, 21 through 25's full seasons, plus 26, the Braves lead lead the National League East with 26 of these. Those of you on YouTube, I just dropped a graphic here in the bottom corner that has the chart from the article that shows how many have happened in each season. Again, nobody in the East but the Braves have one this year. The Braves have 3. Going back that 5-year sample from start of 2021 through now, the Braves have the most Soul Survivor Days in the division with 26. The Phillies are second with 24. The Mets are third with 23. The Nationals have 10, and the Nationals have 12, and the Marlins have 10. So it's happened 95 times in the last 5+ seasons, which if you think about, there's 187 days per season. There's 970 days of baseball played in the division, and it's happened 95 times, right? So 10% of the time. The record over this time period is 10 times. The Phillies in 2024 did it 10 times. Nobody else has hit double digits. And there's a little bit of stuff that you can learn. I kind of did some stuff. There's a small correlation between Soul Survivor Days and your standings in the full season. And what's wild is the Braves did not have a single one of these in 2025. There has been 2 full seasons where a team in the East did not get at least one Soul Survivor Day. and they were both last year. The Braves didn't have one. The Nationals didn't have one. There was not a single day last year where the Braves won and everybody else in the division lost. Atlanta's totals every year in 21, 22, and that dominant 2023 offense. For Atlanta, they only had 5 in each of those 3 seasons. 5, 5, 5. 2024, it happened 8 times. Didn't happen at all. So for them to, in 25, so for them to lead the division with 26, having had none of those last year, it's kind of cool. And if you look at, win totals and how teams have done, the 3 best teams in the division over that stretch, Braves, Mets, and Phillies, are the 3 teams with the most of these. 2021 was the year where the division winner had the fewest the division leader in SSDs was the Braves with 5, and they only had 88 games. Every other season, it was like 2022, the Mets had 7 of these. They had 101 wins. They didn't win the division because the Braves had the tiebreaker, also had 101. The 2023 Braves only had 5, and that was the high mark for the division that year was 5. 2024 was the biggest overperformance in SSDs. The Braves had 8 of these, but they barely squeezed into the postseason, right? And so the general trend here is the more of these you have, the better you do in the full season standings. But it's worth pointing out, correlation does not equal causation, right? Putting up sole survivor days, being the only team in the division to win on any given day, does not automatically make you more likely to win the division or a good team. I think it's more coincidental. Just because they both happen doesn't mean one causes the other. It's kind of like what goes up in the summer: ice cream sales and rates of deaths via drowning. People aren't drowning because they bought ice cream. Both of those just happen to occur at the same time because it's getting warmer and people are buying more ice cream and they're going out and swimming more. At the end of the day, I kind of think this is similar to that. Like, you're not winning the division because you put up a lot of these. Does it help? Yes. Every time you have an SSD, you gain more ground in the standings over everybody else. But it's not, you don't win the division because you're doing this. This happens because you're playing well enough to win the division. It's still fun to talk about, though, right? We're going to track this throughout the season. I'll occasionally provide updates as we see more of these come up. And the big thing for me here, again, the record in the division over this 5+ year sample is 10. 10 times for Philly in 2024. That was a 95 win roster. The Braves right now are on pace for 23. Now, do I think the Mets are going to lose 11 straight games, or going to keep having 11 game losing streaks? Do I think the Phillies are going to keep getting swept at home? I hope it happens, but I don't think we can bet on that. But it's just something fun to kind of look at. Oh, there's been 3 times this year where the Braves have won and everybody else in the division lost. It's a fun thing to talk about, and we're going to keep tracking when it happens and pointing out how much fun it is to watch the Phillies and the Mets and the Marlins and the Nationals lose while we're sitting there celebrating to win. That'll do it for Braves Today. Please like the video. Please subscribe both here and at bravestoday.com. And we'll see you next time on Braves Today.